I never thought a fight with my HOA would end with police cars flooding my street, a woman in handcuffs screaming about her authority, and officers telling me my entire house, my neighbors' houses too, could have exploded. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not dramatizing it for clicks. This all started because I refused to quietly bow my head. And by the time it was over, the person who thought she owned this neighborhood was facing felony charges. My name is Daniel. I've lived in Oakwood Estates for almost 5 years. On paper, it's the kind of place people brag about: clean sidewalks, neat lawns matching mailboxes, and that calm suburban quiet that makes real estate agents smile a little too wide. But anyone who actually lived here knew the truth. Oakwood Estates wasn't run by common sense. It was run by fear. And at the center of that fear was our HOA president, Karen Wilkinson. From the day I moved in, Karen made her presence impossible to ignore. She walked the neighborhood like she was on patrol, clipboard tucked under her arm, pen tapping like a weapon. She didn't wave. She didn't smile unless she was correcting you. She measured grass height, counted minutes, trash cans stayed out, and somehow always seemed to appear the second someone violated a rule they didn't even know existed. At first I tried to coexist. I really did. I waved when I saw her. I sat through HOA meetings where she talked for nearly an hour about acceptable shades of beige for house exteriors. I even complimented her ridiculous collection of garden gnomes once, though I thought they looked like something out of a horror movie. I figured if I stayed polite, stayed quiet, stayed compliant, she'd leave me alone. I was wrong. The turning point came the day I installed solar panels on my roof. I'd done everything right. Filed the paperwork months in advance, got written approval, checked county codes, state regulations, HOA bylaws. I'm a structural engineer. Reading fine print is literally part of my job. There were no shortcuts, no loopholes, no gray areas. Still, Karen showed up that Saturday morning while I was washing my car. I remember it clearly. The sun was already high water dripping down my driveway, the smell of soap in the air. She marched straight up like she owned the place. "Those panels are an eyesore," she snapped, barely glancing at me. They were not cleared by the Architectural Review Committee. I shut off the hose and looked at her, confused more than angry. Actually, Karen, they were. I submitted everything 3 months ago. Approval came through last month. I've got the paperwork inside if you want to see it. Her lips tightened. She didn't like that answer. "They reflect sunlight onto the road," she said, voice rising. "That's dangerous. Drivers could be blinded." "They're anti-reflective," I replied, forcing myself to stay calm. "They meet state, county, and HOA standards." She ignored that completely and scanned my yard like a hawk looking for prey. Then she smiled that thin, satisfied smile and pointed at my grass. "Your lawn is overgrown. Section 7, paragraph 3. Maximum height is 2.5 inches. I stared at her. I'd mowed the day before. "Do you want to get a ruler?" I asked, letting a little sarcasm slip out. That was the moment everything changed. From then on, it was open season. Violation notices showed up constantly, sometimes multiple in a single week. My trash cans were visible from the street for 15 minutes too long. The flowers I planted weren't on the approved list. Holiday lights I'd taken down months earlier were supposedly still detectable if someone stood on a specific rooftop and looked through binoculars. I wish I were joking. Every time I complied, I documented everything. I stayed polite. And every time Karen got angrier. It was like she couldn't stand that I wasn't panicking, that I wasn't just paying fines to make her go away like everyone else. That's when I started to realize something uncomfortable. This wasn't about rules. It was about control. So I did the one thing she never expected. I nominated myself for an open seat on the HOA board. I told myself I wasn't trying to start a war. I just wanted transparency, balance, a voice of reason. But Karen saw it for what it was, a threat. She cornered me by the mailbox a few days later, smiling like a snake. "I hear you're planning to run for the board," she said. "How ambitious." "I just want to contribute," I replied. "You know, the position demands a lot of time," she said, stepping closer. "Given your circumstances, I'm not sure you'd manage." My circumstances apparently were working remotely, which actually gave me more flexibility than most people here. But she wasn't talking about my schedule. She was warning me. "You shouldn't pursue this," she whispered, her smile gone. "The board works best when it's unified. Outsiders stir up trouble." That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd made a mistake. And over the next few weeks that doubt only grew. Anonymous letters started appearing in neighbors' mailboxes. Questions about my job, rumors about why I worked from home, suggestions that I was hiding something. I could feel the shift when I walked down the street, conversations stopping, polite smiles fading. For the first time since moving here, I felt isolated in my own neighborhood. There were nights I genuinely considered dropping out of the race, paying the fines, keeping my head down, letting Karen win. I remember sitting at my kitchen table one evening, violation notices spread out in front of me, asking myself, is this worth it? Am I the problem? And then came the day that changed everything. I was coming back from the grocery store when I saw a utility truck parked in my driveway. A man in a high-visibility vest was inspecting the side of my house. "Can I help you?" I asked, heart suddenly racing. He looked relieved to see me. "Are you the homeowner? We got a report of a gas leak at this property." I froze. I didn't report anything. I haven't smelled gas. He checked his paperwork. The call came from Karen Wilkinson. She said she was representing the HOA. My stomach dropped. I'd never given her permission to be on my property. We walked over to the gas meter together, and what we saw made my blood run cold. The protective seal had been scraped. The valve had been loosened just enough. "This is recent," the technician said quietly. "Someone's been tampering with it. Not enough to cause an immediate leak, but enough that it could have turned catastrophic." I felt sick. Then I remembered my security cameras, the ones I'd installed after those anonymous letters started circulating. Inside, we pulled up the footage. There she was, Karen, glancing around, kneeling by my gas meter, fiddling with the valve, clear as day. The technician went pale. "Sir," he said, "this is serious. She could have caused an explosion." I didn't hesitate. I called 911. Within an hour, my quiet street looked like a crime scene. Police cars, a fire engine, another utility truck, neighbors gathering on sidewalks whispering. Officers watched the footage with grim expressions and asked about my history with Karen. When they left to confront her, I sat on my porch steps shaking. 2 hours later, I watched through my window as they led her out of her house in handcuffs. She was shouting about safety checks, about her authority, about how she ran this community. The next day, it hit the news. Charges were filed. Criminal tampering, reckless endangerment, trespassing. Her bail was set at $50,000. That evening, Oakwood Estates held an emergency HOA meeting, the biggest turnout in its history. Karen was unanimously removed, and when the vote came, I was elected to replace her. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Less than an hour after she was released on bail, she pulled up beside me in her SUV, face red with rage. "You think this is a victory?" she hissed. Before I could respond, police lights flashed behind her. She'd violated the restraining order. Again. This time, the judge showed no mercy. Bail revoked, detained until trial, potential prison time. I didn't feel joy. I felt relief. And one clear lesson echoed in my mind as I walked back into my house. Power without accountability will always destroy itself.